and welcome to the Journey to CEO Success. I'm your co-host, Melissa Saunders, and I'm joined by Patrick Thean, award-winning serial entrepreneur, renowned CEO coach, and best-selling author recognized by the Wall Street Journal and USA Today. Patrick's latest book, The Journey to CEO Success, is a #1 Amazon bestseller and the inspiration behind this podcast. Patrick, it's great to have you here.
Yes, thank you. It's a great day.
And today we're joined by Brad Copeland. He's the president of FileBank, an information management company that helps organizations bridge the gap between physical records and digital access. For over 40 years, FileBank has been managing documents, film, and video across their entire lifecycle, transforming information into a strategic asset. Hi, Brad.
Hello, everybody. Good to see you, Patrick. Thank you, Melissa.
Yeah, Brad, thank you so much for coming on our show today. It's so exciting to talk to you. We're going to spend a couple of minutes first to share about your company, and then after we'll get into your personal journey. So why don't you take a couple of minutes and tell us a bit about FileBank?
Sure. As Melissa kind of outlined, we're an information management company. The business was started just about 40 years ago by my father, the scion, and the person who really has kind of set the culture. And I'll talk a little bit about that, I'm sure, in our discussion. But we started with physical records. There was a company out of California called Brambles. They got bought by a company called Iron Mountain, and they were storing business records. And we got into the business of doing the same thing. We had a 100,000 square foot warehouse. I'll call it my father's second chapter in his career. He went and got his MBA and realized that there was a glut of demand for information that couldn't be stored on premise because the speed at which we were creating information. And we got into the records management business, and it's evolved over the last 35 plus years to be a digital management company, but also a physical management company. We have a vault in northern New Jersey. We have a data center right outside of Philadelphia, and we basically store everything from a Muppet to a costume to a document that is associated with Frank Sinatra, to student records and architectural plans and data. So we really spread the gamut.
That's amazing, because you said digital records, and I understand the beginning of like the files and everything. But when you said Muppets, that shocked me. So, but it's still a document, right? Like you're not actually storing.
We actually we store puppets because the distinction between the brand, which we sometimes get ourselves in trouble with, but we actually store the physical asset, and we created a digital repository. So as a puppeteer needed access to, let's just say, a tiara or a frog, we would be able to go to our digital asset management catalog, pull the information that we stored physically in this vault, and then deliver to them when they need it, versus having somebody going into an unbarcoded, unclimate controlled environment to look for these assets. We could do it more efficiently than they can. And that's really our sales approach, which is let us be your back office for information and assets while you focus on your primary role or function with whatever your business is directed towards.
So do people still send you like all these files that you guys scan and then digitize, and then you store, and then you actually still keep the files?
In some instances we do, because those documents, like you wouldn't shred the Declaration of Independence because you've digitized it. There are documents that have intrinsic value. For instance, it's our quincentennial, the 250th anniversary of our country this year. And we have documentation in northern states that is a slave's release so that they weren't being tracked by the folks from the South to then bring them back to the South from the North. So they literally had their documented papers on file at their local town, municipal building or school that says that they were a free individual. So those are documents that we want to preserve because there's a history and a story there. We'll digitize them so we give more people access to it, but we do want to maintain that original. But that isn't the case. We also do the full life cycle, which is we shred a lot of things.
Gotcha. So in the world of AI right now, right, how is AI playing with your whole documentation? Are people asking you to somehow use AI to extract like piece of information, that kind of stuff?
It is such an exciting time to be alive. And interestingly enough, we had a grandparent live with us for a period of time about a decade ago. And I had said to this individual, it's amazing what you have observed over the last 95 years. And if she could be alive today to see what's going on with artificial intelligence, it's remarkable. So to answer your question, we had a really interesting use case. I went to a Harvard program that was through YPO at Harvard about 2.5 years ago. And I really immersed myself in AI. And I came from the data side originally in my career. But we were using AI to take and extract documentation from a specific client that was 50 and 60 years old. And what they were trying to do is use it for development work. They wanted to understand who they granted money to, where they graduated from, and by doing that, we were able to use AI to search through thousands of pages to get this information where it would take an individual hours to do. Another use case is we're taking PDF documents that aren't accessible to visually impaired individuals. We're using AI to turn them into, I'll call it a certified accessible document. And we're making those documents readable on a reader for states, local municipalities, and federal because of timeline to make those documents accessible. So these are examples of how our world is adopting and using AI to really make information more readily available.
Yeah, that's great. And it sounds to me like you guys are at the perfect place, where people have already digitized their stuff. And maybe when they did that, they didn't think of the power of using AI to really go through and use their data and their old documents for more like intelligent advice for the future, right? That's amazing.
We call it contextual search. So, Google made search ubiquitous, right? Everybody says you just go and you look for it. But now imagine if I could connect documents that people wouldn't think would be connected. And we're doing it where we're seeing a lot of it in mergers and acquisitions or in forensics, where there's information that is, I'll call it dumb data. So files that sit in a box that were generated digitally, but no longer are stored digitally, that we could then scan, turn into intelligent information, patents, term for convenience in old documents that weren't digitized to leverage and make sure that you know what contracts look like in your own archives. So yeah, it's a really exciting time, and AI is absolutely impacting our industry.
That's great. So let's switch over and talk about your personal journey. This podcast is about helping CEOs have a more joyful and successful journey. And I for one, don't like the phrase, you can have your cake, but you can't eat it. Because I'm like, if I went and got myself a cake, why would I not want to eat it? So to me, the cake for a lot of us is success, but a lot of successful people aren't happy, aren't joyful. And so to eat your cake and have it, to me, is having success and whatever makes you joyful, family, right, all that kind of stuff. So I'd love to now let's talk about your personal journey, about how you came to this place. Now, I think you said earlier this was your father's business, correct?
Yeah, I was his first employee in the early 90s, when the business really started to grow from being just an idea and him bootstrapping and doing everything that he was doing at the time. And then I left. I had a CEO, a family friend. He was a CEO of M&M Mars and Aramark. And he says, Brad, you come from a long line of entrepreneurs. I think you would do yourself a service if you either got your MBA or you went out and you worked for a blue chip company, an IBM, a Xerox. And I left the family business. I originally started on Wall Street. and I saw what technology was doing. We covered EMC, we covered Amgen and Sun Microsystems. And those stocks were outperforming every quarter on their earnings. And I said, I don't want to just be making money off of it. I want to be part of this massive transformation that was going on in the early 90s. And so we started FileBank. I was, again, early days on in the business. And I decided that I needed to go prove, like most sons do to fathers, that I could do this on my own. And so I went to go work for Xerox. That was my first, I'll call it, real training that I have gone through. And that was probably the best experience. Ken Nelson, the CEO at M&M, CIO at M&M Mars, I took that, and he's been one of those mentors to me in my career. And that was one of the best decisions I made, because I really got to see what culture and training and investment into employees, continuous learning meant. And that was something that I pulled through each of my moves in my career.
Yeah, it seems to me that you have been very fortunate. You had a mentor that taught you that idea, and you were open, of course, to listening and trying that route. But at the same time, when I look at your career, you've got really good pedigree. You've got Xerox, and then from there you went to PeopleSoft, and then from PeopleSoft you went to Oracle. So those are companies that also, I think, teach you a lot about like how to really build a business development, longevity. I mean, it's a lot of good training. So one of my theories is that, look, we all don't dictate oftentimes where we go, but if we're lucky enough to have a mentor early and it's the right job, things that just the right things early, really shapes our lives. And what are your thoughts on that? And how has this really shaped your life?
It's been a great ride, and one of the things that, and I know your philosophy, or the idea of wanting to not only celebrate that you've earned the cake, but to eat it. I think those moments are really critical, and I think in all of our careers. I believe you were at Oracle for some period of time early in your career.
I started my career. I got recruited out of college, out of Cornell. I went straight to Oracle, knowing nothing. I was a little peon. But yeah, I spent 2 years and 9 months at Oracle before I started my first company. And I would say I owe so much, almost everything I know and my perspective on companies to my almost 3 years at Oracle.
And that's where I was going to take this. So there are decisions that you make that are your decisions. I decided I wanted to leave Xerox because I wanted to now not only be in the hardware space, but I wanted to be in the software space, which was really eating the lunch of hardware at that time and place. And I got to go to PeopleSoft. Remarkable culture, really, I'll call it, we were in sync as an organization. You talk about culture in your most recent book and being aligned. I felt that PeopleSoft was. We were acquired, hostile takeover. So I really got to see the Sun Tzu, the art of war of Larry Ellison, and I have mad respect for Oracle. I equate working for Oracle like playing for the Yankees or whatever your World Series baseball team is. But I realized that I couldn't be an entrepreneur that I was. At this time, I had started my own real estate business, and I was doing that as a side hustle that was something that was of interest to me. And I decided that I wanted to go work for a company that was a startup. And I went to a company called Click. And here comes my second mentor, which was a gentleman by the name of Lars Bjork, who is the CEO of Click. And he gave me access to a CEO in a way, in a startup, that I felt very proud of, that he was willing to listen and understand what the sales organization was going through and selling from a small company perspective. But we were agile and we had an unbelievable culture. And that was something that it was instilled in me. And that's why I was there for 11 years. It was a remarkable experience. But interestingly enough, I was an executive that was growing. I had a family that was growing, and I found that my career was so important. My wife is also a CEO who's been on your podcast, and something had to give. Now, I wasn't willing to give up my career, but I recalibrated what my expectation was, which was I could have that cake and make time for my family and for my wife and have a lifestyle that was still intense, which was the expectation, but had to at least step back and balance that all. I left Click, not on my own will, but it was Tomo Bravo came in. It was a PE acquisition. A new regime came in. I realized that I wasn't the new CRO's person. So I said, hey, it's time for me to move on to that next chapter, which opened up the door for me to go to a number of startups that were remarkable, Thean people and products up. But that also gave me the comfort that I was able to repeat my success, not once. It wasn't like I was a one and done. I was able to do it, and it was allowed for me to give me the confidence to take over the family business.
Congratulations doing that too, because one of my favorite books is by Who Moved My Cheese, and oftentimes I think people wait too long. The book talks about how the two guys in the room and one really notices, hey, the cheese is starting to smell bad. There's less in here. And he goes out in the hallway to look for new stuff. But the other guy is like, there's still cheese. Even though it smells bad, there's less. There's still enough. And I've seen that in my own life and in so many of my friends' lives. Like, the faster you just recognize that your cheese has been moved, get out in the hallway, it ain't so hard. It's not as hard as everyone thinks it is.
It is so much easier, and you need that infrastructure to support you because you feel alone and there's a fear. But if you have the right people around you, you know in your gut that it's the right thing. And I think that's one thing I'll say to anybody that I ever work with. If your gut's telling you that something's off, there's something off, and to take stock. Do things at your pace, but don't wait too long because you'll convince yourself that you're making the right decision by not doing anything. So,
yes.
Yes.
Yeah. What do you mean by having the right? What do you mean by having the right people around you? What are the right people?
I have a 22-year-old entrepreneurial son, and he says, Dad, when you surround yourself with people who push you to be better than you are each day, that is when you know you have the right people around you. And I have always had, I think, a really good group of mentor and mentees that have challenged me as a mentor to them as a mentee, and mentors. Lars, as I mentioned, Ken Nelson. My father was an amazing mentor because of his dogged conviction in what he was doing, and just one foot after the other, one acquisition, one project after the other. But anyway, those people give you enormous comfort that you can talk to them, process issues, process concerns. Obviously, like any good consultant or therapist, it's not their advice, it's them backing you into what you know is the right decision for yourself. And so that team around me has always been, and Julie, who you know well, has been an amazing resource. That those foundational blocks give you the confidence to take the risks.
Gotcha. So tell me about what is your passion today? What is your dream for yourself and for the company?
Yeah, I came, as you talked about, from a series of organizations that were either publicly funded or had a culture of discipline, rigor, forecasting, vision, product that they could lean on. I mean, Oracle had an amazing brand, and those things were phenomenal resources. But what I have learned is to build a culture and surround yourself with good people. I always looked at the movie Entourage, more currently as this TV series called Landman, where when you build a team that is loyal, that you could trust, that you could lean on, nobody's perfect. Everyone's going to make mistakes, but if you give them the grace that they have the best intentions, I think anything is possible. So for me, what I want to build and continue to pull forward is Greg, who's the founder of FileBank, my dad. He has built a culture built off of a family mentality. The company is a family. He takes care of his employees very differently than I've experienced because it was a small business. I believe taking that forward and being the steward of this is part of my legacy in working with my father, but also to create an environment. I have this simple axiom. It was from a salesperson's perspective, but it's grown as I've become a leader. It's called learn, continuous learning, earn, make sure you're earning and the people around you are earning, because if that's the case, you're checking that box. You can't have a three-legged stool without those two foundational. Having fun, which is, I think, part of the theme of what you've been talking to me about with your latest book. You have to enjoy what you're doing. If you don't, your customers, your employees, your prospects will see that. It's very transparent. So having fun with your employees and your customers. And lastly, I'll say, give back. We at FileBank have a culture of, and I did this when I was at Click, is my Christmas gift to my customer wasn't swag. It wasn't something that they were going to put in a landfill. It was, we would donate to their local food bank, because that was something that would have a far greater impact. So giving back is a cultural thing that I want to continue to build on, which Greg, the founder of the company, my father, has done. And then finally, run to the ugly. And I know that's a weird thing to say, but the real relationships are not built off of rainbows and unicorns and everything's perfect. It's when you acknowledge that you've done something wrong, or you solve a client's problem, or your employee has an issue and you talk it through. When you do that, the respect is built, and that ultimately builds the strongest foundation, both internally and externally. So for me, it's to continue to build, and you'll hear that as a theme for me. I'm a builder. I love to build upon amazing products, amazing solutions, and find new ways that clients can utilize it that we never thought of. And so for me, that is really what my goal is to continue to steward this great business and continue to build, innovate, learn, earn, have fun, give back, and not avoid the tough conversations.
That's great. Now tell me, your 22-year-old entrepreneurial son, what is his vision and what is your vision? Or, is this something that you think is he involved in the company today?
He is. As a matter of fact, he's on my payroll. He is an IT liaison. He has helped us really procure some amazing resources, both in the US, but also internationally, to augment our IT team. There are certain people who are born with it. He has in his DNA this desire to really succeed as an entrepreneur, and he understands technology in the market. So he's an amazing consigliere, and sometimes it's I feel like my father, where I was the bull on top of the hill, and I just wanted to get things going. He's action-oriented, but he's very, very capable, and so it's really fantastic to work with him. I don't think, though, he'll work in the company long-term, because he has his own goals, and I want to make sure that he delivers on what he wants to do. So he's in Miami, and he's probably will wind up there. So,
however, are you encouraging him also to maybe go get some outside experience, and then maybe he may choose to come back, right? Because that's what happened with you. You went out for that experience. Yep. Because I this is advice that has been given to, not to me, because I don't have the great fortune of running a business with my dad like you do, but I have friends who are in your similar situation, and what they've always said is hey, they encourage their kids to go get outside experience, so that when they choose to come back, it was their choice, and they don't have to come back. In fact, one of my other YPO friends said, hey, I'm not going to strap on my big business onto my poor son's back unless it's something he wants. Otherwise, it just seems very unfair to steal his dream to make it my dream, right?
Right. Yeah, and that's a constant conversation in our household, because my middle son, Logan's an entrepreneur. At 15, he started a car detailing business and was clearing real money and has an entrepreneurial background. Austin, who I mentioned, my 22-year-old, same thing. Julie's an entrepreneur, and we all come from entrepreneurs. And my thinking is, it's a blessing and a curse, because there is a certain level of expectation of the youth today that they live up to their parents, the job market and everything that we're seeing out there today, the cost of housing, the cost of living. With Austin, he has an idea of what he wants to do, and he's building a business. He exited a business when he started his freshman year in college, and he's now on their payroll. And I want to see him continue to build that. If he'd like to come into the business, I always welcome it. But to answer your question, I said, go work for a McKinsey, go work for the best organization in your industry that you want to learn from. Go work for Peter Thiel, go work for somebody, and get that experience, because that mentorship, which I talked about earlier in my career, was really critical for me, because it wasn't my father who was my mentor solely. It was, I had different perspectives, and that was really important for me. So, but he's welcome into the business, and this is a conversation we have, as many YPOers do, or legacy organizations.
Yeah, I think it's such valuable thinking for a lot of our audience, because we serve a lot of CEOs, and a lot of them are YPO members, and a lot of them have succession discussions in this phase of their life. So Brad, I love talking to you. I could talk to you the whole day. However, we're coming to the close of our time, and this podcast is to help CEOs just like you, just like me, to have a more joyful and successful life. Not just success, but joyful and successful life. So what advice are you able to leave with our audience to help them have a more joyful and successful life?
Slow down, stop, and enjoy the wins, because so quickly we go, well, we've got to get the next one, or we've got to grow our EBITDA by this much, or we've got to do the next round, or we've got to launch the next product. Slow down, relish in those moments. Each step is a win, and I will end with this. You have to have fun with the team and with the people that you work with. That is so critical. People want to be part of something, and if you could create a culture where they feel like they've built it, they've contributed it, they will have fun, they'll want to learn, and you will all grow together. So I would say, learn, compensate your people well, have fun, give back, and don't be afraid for those hard conversations. That's just my mantra, and I'll stick to it, Patrick.
Thank you, Brad. Thank you. That was awesome. Melissa, back to you.
Yeah, you guys, that was great conversation. Brad, I enjoyed hearing about your story. I know many of our listeners would love for you to put on a class on how to get such bright and entrepreneurial focused children. So think about that. But until next time, go out there, enjoy this beautiful journey we're on. Bye now.